This program is part of the Pathological Nerdcasters Network. Find more at PNCN.rocks, where all the geeks come to play.
Hi, Brandon with Spaghetti and Meeples. Welcome to part 2 of the Pathological Nerdcasters podcast panel from GameStorm 18. I'm trying to keep it low-key right now because Cloak and Meeple is trying to get me to play Twilight Struggle, and last time I played Twilight Struggle with Cloak and Meeple, it did not go well. Anyway, here it is, part 2. Enjoy.
Yeah, we did. Never last. Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Now we got some extra special guests. We got our 2 guests of honor who decided to come up. So please come up. So these are the guys that GameStorm actually paid to come up here. We have Mike and Brian. I know you're from you did the Gollum Arcana stuff.
Yes. Oh, I did too.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, Herbert's team.
Yeah, I know. You showed Mike over here the game, and he went out and bought it.
It's a successful demo. Any demo that ends in a sale is a successful demo.
He went and bought it, and as soon as I showed up, he dragged me into the dealer's room to show it to me, and was telling me all about it. So I'm extremely curious about the game.
Mike and I both were. Oh, hi. There we go. There's Mike. So Mike and I worked at Harebrained Schemes together, and we're both. He was lead designer for Gollum Arcana, and I was his apprentice. But I was also in charge of operations, so I did manufacturing for the miniatures in China and Kickstarter, fulfillment, and a lot of other miscellaneous hats. Harebrained Schemes is a very small company.
The little conversation here started off with talking about playing chariot game. Gosh, I just totally blanked. Circus Maximus, and talking about how it was this old game, and knowing full well that I was one of the guys who bought it off the shelf when it first came out. And have been around long enough to have played that game in 2 or 3 different forms. Played that game in 2 or 3 different forms over time. So it was, start off talking about a game I played, 30 years ago. Podcast for me. Screw the young kids. Let's talk old school.
So tell us briefly about yourselves and what you've been doing besides the Gollum Arcana. And I know you actually, didn't you work on the Shadowrun campaign stuff?
Okay, so
guys.
Let's sit for a minute. I started I started in comic books. To be perfectly honest, during the big comic book heyday, moved over to games where I worked at FASA on a myriad of games, BattleTech, Earthdawn, Shadowrun. Did Shadowrun for quite some time as a tabletop RPG. Did the Shadowrun from, I think Brian just discovered that I was doing Shadowrun in '98, but I was actually doing it before '98. Worked on Shadowrun, worked there, went to WizKids. Was the designer of HeroClix. I was the designer of, I was not the core designer of Mage Knight, but I did Mage Knight Dungeons. There was a guy yesterday here with Mage Knight Dungeons set up. I was like, oh my God! He's like, oh yeah, and he's like, this is my son, he's been playing it, and he's been playing it, my wife was pregnant with him when he came out. I'm like, oh, stop. So I played, I did Mage Knight Dungeons, all the WizKid games. I was a lead designer on almost all of them. Finished up there working on a game called Pirates of the Spanish Main, if anybody remembers the starting game. So designed that, worked on that, and went from WizKids to, did some freelance stuff. Then moved to a company called Smith & Tinker, did Nanivore, designed that game. That was, I don't know if anybody's going to actually remember what the key component to this game was. I seem to work on games that have a non-traditional element that are designed. In this game, what you had was effectively, think about it as like if Pokemon, I think the elevator pitch for that one was Pokemon meets Quentin Tarantino. Because really what it was is you had these little monsters that you played on the internet and in a social environment with other players. But you can actually connect a small device, about the size of an iPhone, to your computer via cord, download your guides to your little device. So that when you and I are on the school bus the next day, I have my army on my device, and you have your army on your device. It has a screen. We magnetically connect them together, and our guys jump back and forth as they fight to each other's devices. You can have up to 4, so I can be on the far right, and you can be on the far left, and my guy would run through all the screens to attack you using a magnetic connection data
They were
transfer.
cubes, right?
Huh?
Were they cubes?
No, they weren't cubes. They were actually a device. It was actually.
I swear to God,
looks-
I saw this thing. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like people are like, wait, I remember. I thought that was just a dream.
Like Smash Brothers on Game Boy in live action.
Yeah, and so that was our selling point. And I
Did you
remember
pop them into different formations, or was it always a linear?
it was always linear,
Okay.
straight up linear. It was side connectors. And then I remember my brother actually at the time was working at Apple, and he would complain constantly about, he's down in California. He's just like, these rich SOBs are coming in and saying that their iPhone's ruined because they gave it to their 6-year-old to play apps on. Can you believe anybody would waste a $600 phone giving it to their 8-year-old kid? And he would just be bitter about the, 1%ers out there. And who knew that was the death knell of their entire business? Because nobody was going to buy a $50 or $60 device when eventually the apps that came out for that were, greater and constantly greater, especially when they started doing community-based games. So unfortunately, Smith and Tinker went under, and then I did some freelance stuff again, and I ended up at our Harebrained Schemes, where I did the core mechanics for the Shadowrun Turns game, and then and some stuff there, and then moved over, as Brian said, working on Golem. So that's
That is completely awesome.
that's the history of gaming. And before that, I think I discovered chess, and possibly I worked on some checkers variants. I don't remember.
So tell us a little bit about Gollum Arcana.
I'll let you two take care of that.
Yeah, I can't.
The apprentice is going to take the mic.
I can't compete with that level of history. My background is definitely more on while I had my first career in user experience design in the dot-com days, my goal in video games has been primarily on the production and business end. And Golem Arcana is really the first project that had a physical component. I came to. What is that fuzzy sound? No, I came to Golem Arcana. I came to Harebrained Schemes because they're a video game company. And because Jordan Weissman is one of the founders, and he has his roots in Shadowrun and Battletech, etc., he also has his roots in WizKids. And so this hybridization, a second chance, a second go of really what had been started at Smith and Tinker with Nanavore, there's definitely, you can see the seeds of that in both WizKids and in Nanavore and Golem Arcana, moving that forward, except using apps on a tablet or a phone. So my role there was, like I said, manufacturing in China, production, and then also, because it was all hands on deck, I got to use my my spreadsheet skills, which were usually for financial analysis and business modeling. Spreadsheets are a very powerful design tool for games, and so I got a chance to do a lot of modeling of Mike's designs in my super fancy spreadsheets. So we would use those for play balancing and point values and all that stuff.
So for those that don't know Golem, it's a tabletop board game. Our pitch, if you will, is it's a tabletop board game that doesn't have a rule book. And the reason it doesn't have a rule book is because for free you can download the app to your device, Android or Apple type devices, and by syncing your app and making some decisions on the app, you set up the board, and then you communicate to the app, through the device, through what Brian has aptly called it, is basically like an electronic pen. And the pen reads data imprinted on the board and sends it via Bluetooth to the app. So the app is effectively both the rule book and the game master and the record keeper, scoreboard, or however you want to do it. It's a technology that's been around for a while. It's the great. Sometimes it's the slap your hand in your head kind of thing. Nowadays, every little kid has got one of those books that you open up and it's got like a carrot attached to it or something like that, and you tap it and says, the cow says moo, and you tap the cow, and the little speaker goes meh, and then you tap, and then you tap A, that kind of stuff. It's using that exact same technology, except of being tethered to the book and that little speaker. It's using Bluetooth to connect to your device and therefore to the apps consuming the data that's coming in. It's a straight up. So what happens is that you're playing the game. You're going to make a decision. Let's say I'm going to, I'm going to use this cup here, and this is my guy, and I'm going to attack the water bottle. So it's a very evil water bottle. But hey, there's woods between here. Instead of going, oh wait, and then there's the glass over here. What's easier to hit? Oh wait, if I calculate the glass, he's further away. I got to do all the math to figure out that target number. Then I have to go, what page are the woods rules on? Look that up. The app, basically, I tap my guy, my attack, and it says you need a 43 to hit. You need a 57 to hit. You don't have to do the math. It'll just remember where you're at, what's going on, and then it'll say, what do you want to do? Hey, yeah, I want to do it. You click a button on the little device, it rolls the dice, results tells you how much damage, takes into all the consideration all the armor and stuff.
From opening the box to making meaningful tactical decisions is 10 minutes. I mean, the speed to fun ratio is insane, and people are surprised by. You get very different reactions from, one side of the spectrum does not want chocolate in their peanut butter. They do not want technology at their table, and yet when they see what the technology does and they realize that it's doing them a favor, it is doing all of this unpleasant work of bookkeeping, and your brain gets to just settle in at that very high level of making decisions instead of gathering all of the information that you need to make a decision.
Right.
It bubbles it all up to you, and all of your time is really at a very fun level of the gameplay.
So my question would be, right, as you mix technology, right, because I've worked in both video games and tabletop, is how do you deal with that complication creep that comes every time you put a computer near something, right? Because the beautiful thing about board games is the elegance is in the number of the card distribution, or the way you did the track, or the fact that you were using a certain number distribution, right? So how do you deal with that complication creep that tends to show up because you suddenly have a database that can handle all that information in the background?
Well, I think it's
we beat our engineers like dogs. And there's a guy named Chris someplace crying right now. Oh, I actually liked working with you.
I think it's fair to say that there certainly was some complication creep. And there's mechanics that are in the game, like there's a hybridization of an action point system that people would be familiar with, but also with a cooldown, which is very video gamey. And we sort of mushed those together in a way that if you didn't have the app to do that, you'd pull your hair out. But the app does that for you, and once you internalize what's going on, the fact that the app is always just telling you the punchline makes you would not try to do that without the app.
So
the app makes it pretty easy.
One of the things we discovered, one of the things we discovered in doing the game was the fact that at the initial board game level, people really liked it on their first flush. They knew nothing, they knew no strategies, they didn't know power of A versus power B. They just knew, holy crap, I'm playing effectively a game that would take me, hours to learn in minutes. So at that level, we succeeded. As Brian said, the 10-minute thing is true, and it's awesome to watch. And people are making decisions, and little kids are playing their parents and making tactical decisions, but they don't really know what's going on. It was that next step that we really had an issue with, which was, hey, I really like this game. I want to read the rule book and find out what's really going on under the hood. Now, all of a sudden, come 4 months after the game is out, we're like, we gotta write a rule book. That's not how you make games. You don't write the rule book 4 months after the, working on it for a year, and then write the rule book 4 months after the game came out. And that became really that was the lesson we learned from this type of thing, is that yes, we took care of the game master, we took care of keeping track, we took care of the score, we took care of all the tactical stuff, but we didn't have that opening for someone to come in and say, I want to improve my playing of this game. In order to do that, I need to know what's going on.
Free obsession, right?
Yeah, and so all of a sudden, I spent, like 2-3 months after, over the summer before Gen Con last year, literally writing,
what did we do in this thing?
and I have to go back. I'm asking engineers, I'm like, can you look at the code? Because I don't remember how we solved this thing. Not that we're going to put the code in, but we need to know the answer so that I can actually explain to people the angles, how the hills are going to, in fact, how's the stacking order of various abilities being modified, and in order
not
to...
only that, the tweaks, the updates after that, changing whatever you originally had done.
Totally, and in fact, going back to the rule book and going, well, engineer says we can't fix that. Pretend you didn't see draft 2 of the rules, people online. So yes, exactly. It's all that same kind of stuff, and that was the big lesson that we learned, was we thought we solved we solved an issue. And all it really did was open up like 4 more issues. So it's like a real Pandora's box of game design, because we couldn't move any further.
I do want to highlight a couple of things that aren't apparent on the surface when you see the box, and unless you start spending time with it, you wouldn't even expect it, because it's just not done. And that's the connectivity of the app opens up a lot of things that are very video gamey that you wouldn't see in a board game. And if you play any other miniatures games, your mind would be blown that things are possible, that we can, for instance, balance the game with data updates. Now, printed on the cards and in any of the physical things you have is not an army point value for a figure. So it's an army point value of 500 points or 1,000 points, and you spend it on the golems or the knights or the relics or whatever. But we can change that value, and we collect data. Real live data, every single game that was ever played, I can run SQL queries against that data and try to figure out how people are actually playing the game, which figures are most popular, how many times an attack that can affect multiple units, an area of effect attack, how many times is it actually targeting more than one guy? Because our point values would say, well, an AoE attack should be worth more than an attack that isn't an AoE, but how often do you actually get that value? And we can use that to tune and push updates. You do not have to wait. There was no second edition of Golem. Now, we had second and third balance passes, but it was just data that seamlessly everybody in the world was suddenly playing the same version of Golem. And
Unless you were that one person that didn't update for 6 months.
That's fine, yeah. And then another aspect was that we had organized play that had what we would push out special scenarios that were crafted by us that were, okay, this is the organized play for like a tournament, but we also had what we called story scenarios. So we had a living fiction of the world that my proudest chunk was this, we called the Realm of Cinders, and it was a 3-scenario arc. And each scenario was a very specially crafted scenario, doing things that were kind of hand-built by us with little story pop-ups. So you would enter a particular square and you would get a graphical pop-up with a picture collecting of how people played. And so we would release 2 things after a story was done. We released a sort of a data breakdown, so to say, hey, Faction X, you guys, more than 50% of you burned those villages to the ground. And these other people, you decided to do X, and then the short story would reflect that. And it would also, the second story scenario would get tweaked based on the results. So for instance, if whoever won the most suddenly had a more advantageous deployment position in the second scenario, or I'm trying to remember the other things that we did. Like one, they actually started already on the middle of the map or whatever, which actually didn't turn out to be that advantageous, but congratulations. And so that kind of stuff, I play it by ear. That kind of
You
stuff.
won, I'm going to punch you in the face.
You know, this involvement in parts of the lore, in parts of feeling like your individual battle mattered. I mean, we even had, there was one particular story, the faction was trying to deliver a MacGuffin from one part of the map to the other. And I was watching the data, and they were right on the bubble as to whether they were gonna, more people were delivering it or not delivering it. And I literally could zoom in on the game that was the tipping point between the two, and not that, but which golem was the one that delivered it, and which knight was piloting that golem. And so that was the fiction. Like, I could say, your game was the one that, tipped it over.
So are you pushing community features and feedback through any place else besides the app right now? Or like if people are getting to be, like where are people going to talk about this stuff, or how's the fan community building?
Well, we have the forums, the community forums, that was an out branch of the Kickstarter community, and I will be forthcoming here. So we are no longer making additional product for Golem Arcana. Harebrained Schemes is a video game company, and part of our learning curve is that the time to success and the time to revenue for a miniatures game is very different than a video game. And inventory management is very different. The sales process with distributors is very different. And sadly, the Golem Arcana, now we have stock. It's out there in the ecosystem. People can buy it. So if you do go pick up a base game, like here, they're on there on sale over Guardian Games. There's plenty of product. You will have a very happy experience. And the app is free and is still available. It's not going anywhere. And we're looking to outsource the code base to license to some developers who will then open source portions of it to continue to maintain it for some future version of Android that messes up Bluetooth.
Which would be tomorrow's.
Right, the next release.
I would say the app will be plenty stable for the next year. But technology keeps running. And so there's always been, and I think that is part of the risk reward of people deciding to get into this, is they look at it and they know how quickly technology becomes yesterday's technology. And yet today it's doing all these awesome things. And somebody, how do you persuade someone? It's like, you can have an unparalleled experience that you cannot find somewhere else for the next year. But yes, 10 years from now, you can't pull this off the shelf like Circus Maximus and still have the same experience, and that's true. And you can't say that it's not.
Well, that's the world of apps, right? I mean, time to vanish is faster than ever. I have games I worked on in the '90s, video games that most of them don't exist anymore in any playable form, right?
But did you have fun when you play it the first time?
There's always retro. You can always, like, I just built a Raspberry Pi retro emulator there.
But not with apps,
You can do that with Android. There's various iterations of Android you can do. I don't know about the connectivity with your stylus.
That's cool. Yeah. So you could create a stable open brain. You can't do it with, you're right, you can't do it with iOS. With iOS, gone is gone, right? It's like yesterday is.
That's why, in my opinion, iOS is less flexible than
there's an Android
version. So.
Right, that's awesome.
The thing that also was learned over the year was that we just spent a bunch of time talking about it, and I am sure that if we went around to each one of you and said afterwards, tell me how you think this game is, you would be wrong from what we think we're saying to you. It's really only somebody who comes and plays the game because it's got 47 unique parts. And what we discovered over time was, while we would have these awesome con sales because people would play it and buy it because they're like, oh my God, I've never seen anything like this. We once were away from the peanut butter and chocolate mix, just didn't, people couldn't grasp it. And so it became, for a company that was, effectively a small studio, it became kind of a, we need to spend time out in the field, like every board
the marketing aspect of it.
Exactly, like every tabletop game does. And all the guys out here will say, you said that if you
Well,
had the game
I mean,
at
God
your
bless you
booth.
guys for
I
making
laughed
it.
when you said that because
That's a
seriously,
crazy unexplored continent that you were heading
yeah,
into.
exactly. You guys are making a regular board game and you're realizing, oh my God, if we had games here at this show, we would be selling those games. Think about it, if you have an app and a thing and you're showing people stuff, you know, when they walk away and they're gone 2 days from this con and they try to remember it, they're just not putting the pieces back together. And so if we're doing that to people at a con, then, you know, think of the disconnect between the retailer and then the disconnect then even more to a distributor who's never even seen the game, and you start to see that it was either too advanced or too odd.
Well, and I would say and anybody who's designing things is that limit the number of ways that you are innovating, because if you can have one original tweak on a mechanic, one mashup between two mechanics that people recognize, great, that's your one innovation. Now don't have some
save the rest for expansions.
And fine, the theme is zombies, fine, people read that.
The patent is different. If you change only 15% of an original idea, you can get a new patent for it. So you're just changing a small, minute amount.
We changed a lot. So we've got technology, even the presence at the table is one thing. We had an original intellectual property that we're very proud of it, but it's new and different. And it's not just a new IP just in general, but it's also the art style is very baked into this sort of Middle Eastern, South Asian kind of, there's inspirations in Babylonia and in India and Sumeria, and all the names are weird. They're all like Sanskrit, and it's like super original. A little too original, and we're so proud of it, and yet you are proud of so many different ways that it's special, and when you're away from it, I think that the average person can't absorb that many new things.
Right, every new idea is a new explanation, right? And it's a new thing, and it's like, and then it sounds like you were crawling, like, suddenly your distributors don't know what you're talking about, right? And you're like, but let me explain it to you.
Yeah, if we had, no, you can't just wish for having a big IP to attach to it, but if just the innovation was the app, and it was standing on the shoulders of, Star Wars, X-Wing combat, that would, you've got all these things that are familiar, and this one radical thing would be still challenging.
I've actually been surprised that some of the games that have a more familiar IP haven't approached you guys about the licensing the technology.
That's a good one.
If Jordan Weissman can't sell ice he can sell ice to an Eskimo, trust me.
Here's the thing that happened, and it was I'm not going to rock and roll. It was the
I found where the problem was.
the issue with that was, we'll use somebody that we didn't talk to and just use them as an example. So let's say we talked to Games Workshop. And we want to do Warhammer 40k. Famous, like Brian said, famous IP. Everybody's going to know it. The art style's done. We don't have to create new fiction. We're going to do this. The big problem was, and I remember being in the meeting with Jordan, and I looked at him going, okay, when we get done, at some point what we're saying to them is, not only do we have this thing, but we have this thing that effectively puts you out of business. Because you don't have to print books anymore.
Right.
You can, and short stories can be online in an EPUB fashion. And all your rules, you're just going to write them, and engineers are going to code them in. And we will have some sort of.
You don't have to do a new version.
You don't have to do it, and you just add new. Hey, we're going to make the dwarf gunner. He's a little overpowered, so we'll just change some numbers in a spreadsheet, bring them down a little bit, and they can still use the same. We'll sell one set of miniatures, and just the stats change, but the image looks the same. They don't have to do. It was after a meeting that he had with somebody that we did try to sell the product to, that I'm looking at him going, why would they agree to that? He goes, yeah, I'm hoping they don't notice. They kind of noticed.
You know the old joke about the pioneer, right? Right? You can tell who the pioneer is. They're the guys with the arrows in their back.
Yeah, exactly. So it was one of those things that said, well, if we are going to do it, as Brian said, we had to do it ourselves, and in order to do it ourselves, we had to do all the basic tenets. We had to create an IP, we had to create a reason, factions, and all this kind of stuff, and hope you bought in. And if you don't buy in at that level, hope you buy in on the cool tabletop play level, and hope if that's it, then the technical cutting edge level, and it just was too many levels to buy in.
Yeah, and Mike and I, it doesn't take much prodding for us to, pull up a laundry list of what ifs, go back in time, kill Hitler, and then do Golem Arcana differently. And there's so many things we could have done differently. Part of it is, right at the root of the Kickstarter itself, right? We had the Kickstarter meeting panel earlier. Kickstarters are a strange little beast, and you can get sort of swept up in your own Kickstarter. And we put out like 3 to 4 years worth of product in a year and a half, because that's what was part of the Kickstarter. And we built an empire as if we were already WizKids year 3, but we were year 1. And so it's been a great learning experience. I didn't come into Harebrained Schemes know anything about manufacturing miniatures in China. I know a lot about manufacturing miniatures in China now. Wuhan Hao. We learned a lot, and I wish, I still love demoing Golem. So you were asking other people here, it's like, oh, well, what games have you played here at the con? I'm like, I haven't played anything. I've been demoing panels and demoing Golem. I still love Golem. And even though I have to tell people, it's like, well, we're not making any more stuff. There's a lot of stuff you can still buy.
I know, I just played it up at OrcaCon, January. Yeah, demo night. Yeah, and it's like, and then it was like, I think it was right before that the announcement. I'm like, oh, do I really want to buy into that? Because that is really cool, and it's a very elegant system, and the miniatures are gorgeous. But yeah,
it's very well done, and the technology is very innovative, and it's very cool. And I was very sad not to see it take off and see other guys approach you about using it, because it does handle a lot of the stuff that interferes with the fun.
Yeah.
And I still think,
I wish it was still going on as well, because then I would have a job. But yeah, no.
Where you were saying, and then you were freelancing.
Yeah, and then after Harebrained Schemes, I began freelancing again. Sure of my own choice. But the really cool thing, though, from my standpoint, and having just been at Gen Con last year, 14, 20-hour days, it seemed like I just was at the booth in our demo area, was to see people who would not play that kind of level of game, being able to play it. And so to me, we succeeded at something. And we learned, as Brian said, there are lessons we learned that we would go, oh man, if we could only go back in time and have done it this way instead, at this junction point where we had 2 choices and we made one and we realized it was wrong and quickly tried to cut back over.
Over the rocky cliff and across the river.
Yeah, exactly.
Not in a difficult way.
I think there's 2 audiences that I enjoyed watching the most. One is the older, jaded players who have played miniatures games before and perhaps left for a variety of reasons, and then go, this addresses all of the reasons why I stopped playing miniatures games, and this does, now I'm excited about this again, right? So they're recapturing a joy, right? And then you have the other side of geek parents with their children, as young as 7, 8. And I was demoing a game, his father and his son and his little girl. She was the most adorable little precocious child, probably 8 years old. And she was playing one-on-one against her dad. And kids are used to getting a lot of permission from the parental unit because they don't know what their choices are. So they're always having to ask what's possible. And even a child knows that your opponent telling you what's possible is not right. There's a disconnect going on there. So to have a child, the app is this uninterested, this independent third party.
Unbiased. Unbiased, yes.
That is letting the child know what's possible at any given time, and they have agency over their own decisions. Now they're not thinking 4 turns ahead, but they're thinking this turn, and they felt that to make their own decisions, take actions, and destroy their dad's golem. Watch it go up. She was so excited, so energized, and it was just seeing, and of course the parent was having a ball just watching that happen.
Take that 7:30 big.
And the dad can take the gloves off, be like, I didn't tell you, now I'm going to try to play to win, and the game's pretty dicey, so even if you're trying hard, the kid still might win. But yeah, it's like that side of it is really amazing, and I don't think any other game can address that particular relationship and that kind of game experience.
Yes. So you talked about going back in time and killing Hitler. I think what you should do instead, design a game that's not too technologically advanced, where you go back in time, you find Hitler as a child, and you become his mentor, and you teach him to love again.
All right, that would work too.
That's my challenge to you.
With the advent of 3D printers becoming more and more prevalent, almost like household printers, is there a potential avenue just to release CAD files for people to be able to print the figures at home themselves, and then be able to implement, like if you had like some kind of release of the, I'm not familiar completely with technology obviously, but it's the pin, so you basically need like a metal sensor that then has to be interacting with the pin, or QR codes or something like that?
It's infrared ink.
It's infrared code, it's microdot technology.
Sure.
So you can, if you look at a white sheet, you'll be able to see the super microdots underneath. But yes and no. I mean, because then I mean, we did all the sculpting was done in 3D, Maya or whatever, whatever the program that we used was, and then shipped to Hong Kong where they, made the figures. And yeah, possibly, but it's that I don't believe that we're going to release the QR. I mean, the QR. What do I know? I don't even work there anymore.
I don't know that solves.
I was reading, it solves your inventory problem. It solves your inventory problem in regards to people no longer have to stock miniatures. People are printing their own miniatures now. All you then have to do is stock the QR codes that you could then mail to them as like a sticker to put onto their figures that they 3D printed themselves to then continue after that fact.
But then they still don't make any money.
Nerds aren't afraid to spend money on their hobby.
No, we're not.
I don't think the cost, and these are pre-painted too. They're beautiful.
Yes, they are.
Some people love to paint their own.
That is true. That is true. And we were gonna offer unpainted ones at one point. I don't know if
as part of the Kickstarter, and not enough people chose that option. But
I just want to say one thing though, and I appreciate one of the things I've learned becoming, besides being a designer, becoming a guy who had to interface with engineers, became a tech writer, for instance, for lack of a better term, is that there is the word just should just be removed from the English language. No engineer ever wants to hear the word just. He never wants to hear it from somebody who is not an engineer, especially. And so I'm not just, what you're saying is probably something that can be doable. I couldn't tell you the steps that it would take to do it.
We can take out just for engineers if they can't use the word obvious anymore.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly. So it's I learned long ago that you can't just go to just change this to something that look at you with like burning eyes and they turn into some kind of other animal. But yeah, I don't. Well, maybe.
I didn't mean to get into the carry.
I want to say thanks for you guys for letting us post-mortem your game live on the site.
No, trust me, we have not gotten close to force.
it's fascinating.
It was a really unique experience because we were designing in 2 spaces at once. So, no, sorry. We were designing in two spaces at once. We were designing effectively a tabletop board game, something that I've made many of in my life, and we're designing it in a army collectible model, something else I've done. But the whole concept of translating this game to an app, and then collecting the data and all that stuff that Brian talked about, it was like a separate game, and so we really were making two games at once. And I don't think when we went in we really understood that. I think we thought we were making one game that had some engineering and some tabletop, but really it was a parallel design process. Sometimes engineering was way in front of us and they had stuff in the game that we didn't know about until we actually called for it. Other times we were like, it's so obvious that we're going to need this, you know, and the engineers were like, dude, that's 2 weeks worth of work. And we're like, how did that happen?
You know, like the story scenarios that had all these fancy triggers, and you know, you step into the village, you get this pop-up, and then if you choose that, suddenly this other thing happens, and then the whole forest is on fire, and you know, the engineers gave us tools to write all of those triggers, sort of this scripting language, but there was only so many words in that scripting language, and I went through the most chicanerous, twisted manipulations of those triggers to do very complicated things, because the engineers weren't going to write me any more triggers. Right. The triggers that you get. I'm like, okay,
yeah,
what am I going to do here?
So the other thing, the only really
But did they
major
support
thing
you
I
when you
needed
broke
to...
it on the edge cases, or did they were like, good luck, and you used it for something we did not intend?
Let's just, so we made an app at Harebrained Schemes, a game called, what's the rocket game? I totally blanked on it.
Strike Fleet Omega?
Yeah, Strike Fleet Omega. And what we discovered, we thought we were really super cool. We discovered that like we can use Google Docs because we can use that as our database and just update it and then push it up to the app and you know, super fast. And so you know, we did that, and then when we started doing this game, we thought, oh, we're really making the same kind of game, like a tabletop game, and we can push the data up and use Google Docs. I think there's some guy somewhere, engineer in Google, going, what the hell is this company doing? There were times where we just thought, we just literally, you could just see me and the lead engineer, and we're just backing away from our computers going, oh God, please go through, because it held everything in these Google Docs, and we're talking, what was the one document, the scenario doc probably had 80 to 100 tabs. You know, at one point we had to go through and clear it because we were just so afraid that it was going to crash. The main game design document had 15 tabs, including all the terrain mods, all of the attack mods. It was scary as hell.
Here's my favorite.
I don't recommend that for people. Don't do that.
Here's my favorite part. So Google Docs is built for collaboration, right? So we can both be in the same spreadsheet at the same time,
Right.
and if I hit undo,
Oh,
thinking to undo what I just did, and I could be undoing what Mike just did on some completely separate tab because I don't know he's in the spreadsheet at the same time.
Wow.
Yeah,
How many times has that happened?
Oh, it happened more than once. My favorite thing is even the other day, Brian, I saw that somebody said that they did an update to Go. I'm like, I didn't know that. And he's telling me the updates, and I'm like, how were those things broken? They were the same for 2 years. No one changed the range of this attack. And he's telling me that the range of the attack's wrong. So that meant somebody probably somewhere did something. They thought they were in cell on this page. Google Docs is, because the doc is so huge, is so slow in responding. They may have been in another page and hit the number 2. And thinking, and it didn't come out 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. You know, and, by the time Google catches up, it's like, it ranges 222 squares. It's a 6x6 game.
So bottom line is, if you want to buy Mike and I some drinks, we have other stories to tell. War stories from the crazy front of hybridizing digital and physical.
That is true. I'll tell you stories about other games too.
Thanks, man. I mean, for my podcast and what I love to do, you guys are the perfect interview. So I'm
Yes.
be talking to you afterwards as well.
No problem.
Well, thank you very much for coming up.
Oh, no problem. Hope we didn't bore you.
No problem. So we have this poor gentleman. We gotta get him up. Come on up. We got 15 minutes.
Oh my God.
Thank you very much. It was great talking to you. Yes, yes. And
Thank you. Oh, yeah, no problem.
hello, everyone that's left. Hi.
Thank you for sticking with us to the very end. That's awesome.
Well, let's face it, that was fascinating.
Yeah. I would have had you on before. I didn't realize that these guys are going to be so awesome. So what we got going up here, David?
I'm going to challenge you podcasters a bit because what I do tends to be so intriguingly visual that it's actually really hard to photograph. And so since there's no pictures for the podcasting listeners, you get to just sort of describe it for them.
Okay. Hey, Chris, you're very
Well, I've just been handed a piece of paper. It's a cut orange paper. It looks like something from the old electric company logo from the 70s. It's got some empty box shapes in the center.
Yeah, and ordinarily you would get it in an envelope from a friend with an instruction sheet that says, "Congratulations, it's a puzzle."
Oh, yay.
And it's got a message for you, and you have to figure out what the message is.
Okay.
I'm going to save you a lot of time and effort and show you what happens when you fold it properly.
Oh, interesting. So apparently you fold all the outside jiggery-looking flaps in.
I call it an amoeba, although it's a very spiky alien amoeba.
Yeah, and you. Yeah. Spiky. And you end up with a message, and the message is "Happy birthday." Thank you. It's on my birthday. But
And
this is awesome.
what I found fascinating, those of you who may know the name Mike Selinger, he developed the Pathfinder game. He's a professional puzzle maker. He's had like crossword puzzles in the New York Times and things like this. And no less a luminary than he has said that as far as he knows, he's never seen a puzzle like this. I've actually invented a new kind of puzzle.
Nice.
Which I didn't know I was going to do, but I'm like, okay! Or as the other puzzle says.
Awesome.
Yeah.
This is really intriguing. Because I'm seeing on the outside, on the original sheet, you've got these hollowed out places.
Little square holes.
So do those match up? You have around the inside.
So
yeah, so
the
you would
amoeba has
fold
kind of a hollow
those.
middle, and then all these little arms sticking out. And the arms have little square holes, and around the middle there are these little circular holes.
Mm-hmm.
And what the rule is that circles match squares. You can never block a hole. If an arm folds in, there's more than one place to put it, then you can't fold it yet. So you have to find which arms could only go one place and not block a hole. And once you've found those arms, and the other, that takes out the holes for the other arms. So you kind of work your way around, figuring out who could go where until you finally folded them all in and turned them around and you're ready to go.
Yeah, I'm looking at it, and what I really like is they're not all folded at the same angle. It's
Oh,
not
no.
just folded in.
No, you don't just fold them in.
Message.
You have to, yeah, and I've seen a couple, it's like, wait, it's like, no, it's that dot over there. Yeah, they crisscross. And the awesome one's the second puzzle, and I'm very proud of that one because, okay, first of all, it's got to actually spell something. When you get done folding, all the pieces of paper have to overlap. The holes have to be arranged, and the arms have to kind of bulge out so that when you fold it wrong, a hole gets blocked. And the first one, the happy birthday doesn't do this, the awesome does. None of the arms, if you fold it, will prevent you from folding one of the other arms. It's completely non-blocking. So there was about 40 iterations. It took me about a week
Wow.
to develop the whole puzzle.
Just a week?
A week of,
That's impressive.
40 hours.
Yeah,
Kind of a thing.
this is amazing.
So I'm looking at the one that's not been turned into a word yet.
Amoeba?
Yeah.
The amoeba. It has bits that come down in the middle. Are those going to be a part of the word? Oh, let me look.
Yeah.
Yes, they are. They match up. All right, got my answer. Thank you.
Yeah, because the words happy and birthday, there's two words, and I've got them stacked on top of each other, and trying to fold paper to divide words in the middle means I'm trying to get pieces of paper in where it's, yeah. So I was like, how do I make a piece of paper go there without it being like a big blob at the end of a tiny spindly little thing that will get torn off as soon as you look at it. It's trying to get arms and limbs and bits to fill the space properly to make words, because letters are very convenient, was part of why it looks so strange.
So what do you call it?
It's a puzzle card.
Puzzle card, okay. And how is it accessible to
Yes,
our
I want
listeners?
one.
They will, probably this week, I will finally get the my new web store up. I've been selling on Etsy for the past couple of years, and Etsy's kind of like a big flea market, and I now have enough products, it's just this giant pile, and you have to kind of dig through the whole stack. It's just, so I'm transitioning to a new web store hosted by Squarespace, where I get to actually say, hey, categories, and sub buttons, and it's organized. And so I haven't even tried putting these on the Etsy store. I've been getting them to, and I have to deploy it and tell people about it. The store's there, but I haven't actually pointed at it yet. Okay. So any day now, and we'll probably, I guess it's because the people that are hearing this live, it's too late, because you'll have to wait a couple days, but anybody who hears it on a rebroadcast, hopefully it'll be there by then. The company that I do, Improbable Objects, the URL is first three letters of each, impobj.com, or if you just type Improbable Objects into Google, it'll throw you right at me, because that's not that common. Now, what most people know me for these days is a different product, and that's what you'll find in this bag. I know you had not met them before. Yeah. Usually it's kind of well, I introduced them shortly after GameStorm, so around here it's about 50-50 people going, oh yeah, you're the Penny Gems guy, or what the heck are those?
For the listeners at home, there's a pouch, and there have been a bunch of what are
tokens.
They? Tokens.
Yeah, they're tokens.
Shiny,
They
sparkly,
kinda,
pretty tokens.
Yeah, they kind of look like those glass gems you get, the bubbly kind that have been flattened. And on one side it's clear on some of them. On the others, it's got a little shape. There's a star. There's like a heraldic cross. There's a little cool swirly looking sun.
No, I'm placing them in front of someone.
Yeah.
So so these are.
They're very
Somebody
shiny.
modestly, the number one comment. I will modestly describe these as the world's best game token. They have
the other thing they are great for, if you're a geocacher, they're great for dropping off in the geocache boxes.
That would be.
There are people who use them for that.
Yeah.
So the flying saucer shape means that they're really easy to pick up off the table because the edge is raised.
Yeah.
You don't even have to have nails. Despite the fact that they seem kind of roundish, they stack really well, unlike say glass bead, which falls right off.
Oh, look at that!
Easily stack 5 at a time. Does anyone have here's cell phone. Okay. So another thing I like to talk about is how they're non-skid, because they're actually kind of grabby. And when I say non-skid, I mean like ridiculously, unbelievably, preposterously non-skid.
So we just put 2 on top of my Kindle Fire, and he's now holding them upside down from the screen, and they're just hanging out there.
Yeah.
And I just stacked like 8 of them on top of each other I had to peel them apart almost.
Now, take a close look at the side. The weight, the peeling weight comes from...
It looks like a penny.
It is a penny. It is a penny.
That's awesome. Yeah.
That's the name Penny Gem, yeah. So, and the clear dome, it's this amazing 21st century magic material. I've put these in a sock, tied a knot in it, thrown them in the washer and then the dryer and pulled them out. They're fine. I put them in boiling water, boiling oil, acetone, hydrochloric acid, drain cleaner, gasoline, alcohol. I passed them through open flame and struck them with hammers. They are unaffected by all these things. They are UV resistant. Years in the sun will not fade them. If you attack them with a knife, you can cut them if you try hard, but it will tend to self-heal.
Huh.
So they will last forever and look that good the whole time.
Okay, so you said where we could find them, right?
Yeah, in Probable Objects.
Okay, well thank you for
And Penny Gems. Wait.
Whoa.
You mentioned, yeah. This is something that I'm afraid not for sale. It's a prototype that it looks is unlikely to ever be developed, but I know you in particular will be interested by it, and that's this wooden box.
Okay.
Slide the side of the wooden box up, and don't let what's inside the side come out. It's not that puzzling.
I've seen these boxes, and
there you
it's
go.
not good.
7 Wonders.
Oh, wow. Look at this.
Look at that.
Now you take the top off. Oh, this is kind of sticky. Because I noticed that it takes, in Seven Wonders, if you've got good players who know how to play it, you're done in 15 minutes. But it takes at least that long to set up, because you have to get the deck ready. So this saved me a lot of time setting it up. Nope, you continue sliding it apart, layer by layer.
So we got the conflict.
All the military counters are in there a bit.
All the
Money. That would be where the score pad goes. I usually use an app, so I forget to put the score pad back in it.
All the,
Regular decks.
This is a very deep sheet box.
This is awesome.
Which is why it is probably never going to be manufactured, because I was speaking with Geek Chic for over a year and a half. We were trying to figure out how to get it manufactured, and they just couldn't get the time. They're so busy making tables that we couldn't get them to do the box. And then they released some expansions that are really big and huge, and I can't fit it in my box. I'm like, yeah, okay.
That is amazing.
What does it cost both as far as the expansions?
This is it has the first two expansions. It has leaders and cities, yeah. Because Babylon it has all these weird lumpy bits, and I'd have to redesign the whole box. And so, but yeah, and then once you're done, you pick it up. It's ready to go.
Okay, well we have to wrap it up. I'll let you guys know. Thank you.